Hello everyone, it's Ange de Lumière here. I'm coming live for my video 4 of my 5 video series. I'm sorry I couldn't come live yesterday. Turns out it's gonna be okay because I've decided to do 5 videos instead of 6. And so today I'm going to talk about how to cope with the feeling that you're crazy. You know, when you have a really big vision, something that takes you out of your comfort zone, it can make you feel like you've lost the plot, that you're just crazy. And this happened to me so many times that I wanted to share also some anecdotes about my life and when it happened and how I coped with it, sometimes not very well. But I want to say the bigger your vision, the more crazy you might feel, especially if you come from a family where traditions were important. In my family, these traditions were a little bit disrupted by our generation, and I mean that by that my brother, my sister and I. Hi Stephanie. Because up to my father, at least on my father's side, there was a very strong tradition. In France, traditions are really strong, and maybe it comes from the fact that it's mostly a Catholic country. I'm saying that loosely because I know Islam is actually really big as well. But just to go back to my point, from his father and his ancestors, there was only 2 choices. You were either an engineer or you were a doctor. Oopsie, I'm clearing something here. And my dad wanted to be an architect. And when he said that to his father, it was simply unacceptable. He had to be choosing from the 2 professions that were in the family tradition. Because being an architect was too artistic. It was too, how can I say that? When I think of it, it just makes me laugh. I'm sorry to my ancestors, but and so my dad complied and was studied to be a doctor, kicking and screaming because he was really an artist at heart. And so, but then he learned to love his job, a little bit like what I did when I became a lawyer, for different reasons. I had a little bit more freedom to choose what I wanted to do, but it had to be a job that paid well and that provided stability. So the same thing happened to me. You know how we repeat our ancestors' lessons, just taking, hi Isabelle, bonjour, merci de me rejoindre. And so I had a little bit more freedom in the sense that I could choose something that was responsible, but not quite the artist thing, because artists don't earn money and can't make a living out of their art. At least that was the belief that they held at the time, and still do. I mean, my mum still does. Anyway, so when you come from that sort of background, that sort of culture, it's very difficult to break through and to have big dreams because you feel you're crazy, you feel you're going to be rejected. It's incredibly difficult to break loose from the pack, which is what I did later in life after doing satisfying my parents with a 15-year career as a lawyer. I went into new adventures, and this is something we're going to talk about in a minute. So I want to put here. Well, yeah, psychic, don't even talk about it. This is like... Anyway, I want to start this video with the quote from Steve Jobs that says, "The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do." Please remember that. Innovators, people who make a difference, are the people who are crazy enough to have that big dream. And so instead of fighting the feeling that you're crazy, embrace it. This is almost like the story of my life, because I'm going to share how I became an author. Isabel was at university with me, so she knows a lot about me. But she doesn't know in school how bad I was at writing and French. I'm French. I come from Paris, for those of you who don't know me. And English is my second language. Isabel is completely fluent in German. We met actually at translation school and at law school. But what I want to say is that I wasn't a literary type at all. I was more into science and maths, and actually I had a quite unusual profile for the kind of student that studied law. At least back in France, that's how it works. I had a predicted fail in French for my A levels. The equivalent is called the baccalaureate in France. I hated school and I was the least likely candidate to write a book. So when I had the idea to write this book, it wasn't really an idea. It's just that one day I had a story to tell. And it was such a story, I couldn't keep it within me. I had to write it on paper because it was too big for me. And back then it was the story of one of my very, very close friends who was struggling with drug addiction. And I just couldn't keep it in. So I wrote a novel around us to just get it out of my system. And that's something that at first I resisted because I thought, this is completely crazy. I've never written a book. I don't know how to write a book, let alone a novel, because novels are even harder to write than nonfiction books. I couldn't see myself as an author. It was just not in my radar. You know, just like if you say, some people think, oh, you're good at cooking, and maybe you are, but I can't cook. And suddenly you have this inspiration to start a cooking channel. You'd think, oh my God, this is crazy for people who can't cook. So yeah, you're going to feel crazy. Just embrace it. Because what this is really about, and this is what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the hero's journey that Joseph Campbell has immortalized in a way. I don't know if you know about Joseph Campbell, but I'm going to talk to you about him today. He's a mythologist who was a lecturer who went into looking into all the mythologies around the world. He did comparative studies of mythologies. And for me, I was actually introduced to him by a friend when I did my year abroad. Isabel was with us, so she knows who it is. Michael Randolph was a drama student, a very colorful American drama student. And he was a complete fan of Joseph Campbell and Shakespeare. And that's why he wanted to have a year away from his university to study in the land of Shakespeare. And he was like completely mad about Shakespeare. And he actually gifted me some cassettes of recordings of Joseph Campbell's interviews with Bill Maher. And if you have a chance to go and listen or watch this program, because it's available definitely on DVD. I don't know if it's available on what do you call these things, like Amazon Prime Video or Netflix or anything like that. Just look for it. It's just totally amazing. And what Joseph Campbell did really is he encapsulated the hero's journey. And that underlies any story that's ever been told. But what I love about it as well is that he tells us that we are all heroes of our own lives. And we need to embrace the call. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what happens. There's 3 main stages to the hero's journey. And this can happen to us again and again in our life. We are called to do something that we don't want to do, or because the hero always resists the call at first. So there's the departure. Something happens to you in your life that forces you to do something and takes you out of your comfort zone, out of your known world. And I've had so many of these, but I would say the first massive one was when I went for a gap year after I finished school to live in Finland. And that totally took me out of my comfort zone. That was the first stage, I suppose, my first hero's journey, because I went to a country where I didn't speak the language. That was freezing cold, which for me, the Parisian that I was really, really hard. Let me see, I have a comment here. Let me try to read it before it goes. Isabel, I had these few minutes live with you this morning, but sorry, I have to leave it. That's okay. You can come back and watch it later. So the hero's journey has 12 steps, but it's all about departing from your normal world, initiation into something back, and then taking it back into your world, the return. So that's the 3 phases, and there's 10 steps. I'm going to go through them very, very briefly so that you understand that it happens to everyone, that is something symbolic, and that's why we like films so much, because films take us through the hero's journey. Joseph Campbell's system became so popular, and because of the Star Wars series, because he was good friends with the creator of Star Wars. I can't remember what his name is. Oh my god. And I'm a big fan of Star Wars. This is ridiculous, but I'm very bad with names, that's for sure. And so he actually helped the guy who did the Star Wars series. I'm going to sound completely ignorant, not even knowing his name, but I don't care. I'm holding up my hand. Sometimes names just elude me. They just drop into, it's like a black hole for me. Names just go and get sucked into that black hole. George Lucas. So he was fundamental in helping George Lucas to put his film together, because Star Wars is one of those amazing hero's journeys, and they take all the steps that I'm going to describe now. I'm not going to make this video too long, so once I've done this, I want to just get to the point, which is I really want you to join my masterclass, my free masterclass that is happening on Monday. It's a live masterclass. There's limited spots, and we will be exploring your big vision. We will be clarifying it. I will be giving you, or you will be finding within yourself through a meditation, the 3 steps to manifest this big vision. And after that, I will chat with you about what the obstacles are going to be, because there's always dragons on the way to your dragons to slay on your journey to this adventure. So the step 1 is your ordinary world. So for me, my ordinary world, if I use the metaphor with the system, that I go back to my Finnish adventures. My familiar world was Paris. I spoke French. I had my friends. I had my family, my comfort zone, and I went to live in another country. The call to adventure was because I actually wanted to go to Australia to have a gap year, because I had a dream of going to Australia, and there was this program where you could do like an exchange. It was called AFS, American Field Service, and it was matching families who wanted to host people with young people who wanted to experience something different. And the philosophy behind that program, which is absolutely amazing, I wish it was known more by parents and children all together, is it was set up after the Second World War and by an American initiative. I don't know the whole history behind it, but it's amazing. And the idea was to take French people and German people, take them to America and get them to spend some time together so that they could weave friendships, so that to prevent the war from ever happening again. And this is amazing because this program helps young people learn about another culture so that they expand their horizons, and there's no more of that them and us kind of thing. So I really wanted to go to Australia, so I applied for the program, and but then I realized that to go to Australia I would have, Stephanie, you didn't know that about me, did you? That I had to take 2 years off school rather than 1, because I would have to leave to start the school year in Australia in January and come back in January, and that would completely mess up my French curriculum. So I was convinced by the program manager to apply in Europe, which kind of actually broke my heart in a way. And so I chose Spain, Italy, warm countries. I spoke Spanish. I wanted to learn Italian. I thought this is a great plan. But they couldn't find families for me. So I think I would have embraced the hero's journey much easier had it been Italy or Spain, because I would have also thought, this is a language I can use in the future. It's kind of useful. But no, the universe had other plans for me. So I was offered a family in Finland, and it was almost like, this is the only family we found for you, because basically they were selling their students to families. So you had to describe a bit what you liked, what you didn't like, and then a family would choose you. Basically, that's what happened. And so this wonderful girl she was single child in Finland, in Helsinki, saw my file, and she was like, I want her to come to our house. I want a sister, please, please, please. And so I had to choose. It was like, do you want to go to Finland or do you just want to go to university? And because I didn't know what to do, I had no idea what I wanted. I knew what I wanted to do, but it wasn't acceptable for my parents. So I thought, okay, I'm going to get a gap here and try and sort myself out. So I decided to accept the call of adventure, even though I had incredible resistance to it. So that's step number 2. Oh, well, I suppose step number 3 is when you actually accept the adventure. So I did. Trials, friends and foes is step number 4. Now, the trials, friends and foes were the language. Finnish language is one of the hardest language to learn. The climate, minus 24 Celsius is what I experienced when I had because also as part of my year in Finland, there was a month that we would spend in another part of the country, and I was sent to not the North Pole quite, but I was sent to Lapland, which is where apparently Father Christmas lives. And the lowest temperature I experienced was minus 24. And it's the kind of weather when the family I stayed with there would just run, go to the sauna and then run naked outside of their house and roll in the snow. Quite a culture shock for me on many, many levels. I mean, I had some incredible times, like we went cross-country skiing on the lake, and that was another, I mean, when I talk about trials, friends and foes, I was not fast enough to keep up with my Finnish sister in Lapland, and so and she, because they're born on skis, Finns, you know, basically if you don't know how to ski, you're kind of a weird person, and I had never skied in my life, so it was a huge learning curve for me, a bit traumatic at times, I need to say. I didn't break anything, so I am lucky, but it was scary, very scary, because they didn't know how to teach me, because they all learned when they were toddlers. So anyway, trials, there were many. I had also like a funny moment when the son of the family in Lapland decided he wanted to give me something. So he gave me reindeer horns, and I was like, thank you. Didn't really know, so I accepted them because it was a gift and felt very, very honored. But it kind of, it was special. In many ways. Anyway, so then step number 5 is the magical mentor. So it's a mentor that has supernatural aid. I can't think of anyone that did that for me when I was back in Finland, but in the adventure, that's something that can happen. But it can be like a circumstances where you turn things around and you have some sort of help. Maybe it's through signs or people who come into your life. I know that I related very well to the father in my Finnish family. He was very nice. We had really long chats, including about my family of origin, and that was really lovely. Now, the dragon's lair is another step. I suppose it's when you get into a trap and you feel like giving up, and then you have a moment of despair. That's not step number 7. Then you find the treasure, step 8, and then you come back with the treasure. And the treasure obviously is something symbolic. It doesn't have to be a pot of gold. It's a lesson, or it's something that you it's like the hidden blessings. And then you rebirth and you return as a champion to your familiarity. So this is the journey that your big vision is inviting you to, and it's going to happen in stages. You know, you're going to take one step and then another step and then another step, and there'll be growth along the way. It's not going to happen in one big bang, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to cope with it. So I hope this actually helps you to not feel so overwhelmed by it. I do believe that 2 things is that first, we are never shown something that we cannot do. So if you have the vision, you have it in you to make it happen. And the second is that the universe always presents us with something that we can cope with. So it's another way to say it, but I think it's important because the big vision is the big vision, and then the steps are the steps. So if you are presented with a step, and suppose the step was to start really getting serious about your big vision, then that means you're ready. Even if you don't feel ready, there can be that contrast in you, and just embrace that. So my invitation is to join my live masterclass. It's free. It's on Monday. I will be sharing the link so that you can take part in it. There is no replay, and there's some guidelines because there is a confidentiality issue about sharing your big vision within a group. It's going to take part in Zoom. It's not going to take part on Facebook. And so that's why you need to sign up, and you need to make sure. And if you can't make Monday at 9:00 a.m. UK time, which is I think 8 p.m. in Australia, and in Europe, well, it depends where you are in Europe. I mean, there's also the rest of the world. That if you can make it, put it in your diary, sign up and join us. You will receive the guidelines that you need to agree to so you can take part in the masterclass. I work mostly with female entrepreneur or aspiring female entrepreneur who have big dreams. So if that's you, even if you haven't taken even the first step for you towards your dream, join us. As I said, I will put the link and I'll come back for the last video tomorrow. Have a lovely day and see you tomorrow. Bye.